Warning. The following scenes may contain...
Okay, we know. We've heard this. Franco, why would I sign up for this Power Pages course when there's a bunch of YouTube tutorials online?
Great question, my friend. I think the main point is, do you want to do everything the hard way, or do you want your first Power Pages project to be the resounding success it can be? So I'm offering the proven path, the best of my lessons learned, save yourself years and save your project thousands.
Nice. Oh, I'm Sean. I run the Architects Accelerator. It's an 8-week training program to help you become a solutions architect. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you how awesome it is. We're just going to hear from previous participants.
My name's Mike Colling.
My name is Sander.
Hi, I'm Danielle.
Hi, I'm Luke.
Hi, I'm Callum. I work as a senior functional consultant.
I signed up for this because it sounded something that I hadn't seen anywhere else.
And that's what I liked about this course, is that we were focusing about taking the right requirement and proposing to the customer the right solution.
It's showing how to use the whole platform and how to build better solutions that could last a long time.
I don't have a background in software, and given that it's changing so fast every single day, I needed a guided way of learning. If the solution architect is the direction I want to go, I have taken something from every day of those classes and have applied them to my work.
Found it really useful and I really enjoyed it.
Use promo code SPRINT0 to get $50 off.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Sprint Zero podcast. My name is Mike Gowland and I'm here with my co-partner rat in crime, John Russell. Say hello, John.
Hello. I don't think I'm really living up to the rat moniker anymore.
Well, I was going to ask actually, how did your ferret thing go?
Yeah, the ferret adjudication went pretty well in the rat outfit. Yep.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it weren't too scared.
Any disqualifications?
Yes, Ferretus Maximus got disqualified because he was cheating.
Okay, the doping scandals?
No, there wasn't. No.
Okay, fair enough. So, today we are joined by Gary Rafe. Gary is a modern workplace solutions architect at Avanade and has over 15 years experience in the public sector digital transformations. His passions are to harness innovative technology to address workplace challenges in health and public sectors, delivering a positive societal impact. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast, Gary. How are you today?
I'm very well. I'm not sure I can follow that intro, to be honest. That was a very professionally orientated intro.
Right, mate. Yeah, plenty of mistakes on the way as well. So
yeah, I mean we do have show notes that we use. It's when we go off piste. That's when it gets a bit.
That's
murky.
The best time. Surely that's the best way.
Our best episodes are the unscripted ones.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on the show, Gary. Do you want to kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, well, I mean, how can I follow that? I mean, yes, I have spent my career pretty much in and around healthcare technology delivery. To be fair, I started off working for my family business as I was about 16, straight out of school, very green, and we basically did a lot of maternity and healthcare information systems, so put that into a lot of hospitals around the UK over the years. And then obviously I did a lot of on-premise IT, shall we say, before cloud's really a thing. And then obviously Microsoft came stumbling in with Azure and all the greatness of Office 365. And then I thought, well, actually, this is probably something I'm a bit more interested in. Obviously, still healthcare in that sort of space, but actually going down that as a technology route. And then, basically left there and went to work for an NHS trust for about 18 months. Did a lot of cool stuff with Power Platform while I was there. It was one of the first NHS trusts to delve into Power Platform, which was cool. And then left and went into sort of consulting firms, basically, and landed at Avanade about 2 years ago. So, yeah, it's been a bit of a whirlwind of technology and everything else, but yeah, it's cool. But yeah, you're right. My passion is pretty much like healthcare IT and all that sort of stuff. So we're trying to blend the two worlds together. Still trying to figure out how to do that, to be fair. But yeah, that's kind of my.
Where do you think that passion comes from then?
Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, if you speak to my mother, she would tell you that I always wanted to be a vet or a doctor. And then I found IT when I was about probably, 10-year-old fiddling around with computers when there were still dial-up modems. And then just started like programming bits in Visual Basic on, whenever I was sat bored or whatever. And then just kind of went down the computing route. And then obviously later on, the family company got into healthcare IT, and then it was kind of like, well, it was an obvious, I'm going to go and do this. And from that, it's just grown really. And I think for the reasoning behind it is, you can deliver IT to big corporates and do pretty well there. But actually, for me, it's more about trying to improve people's citizens' experiences. Everybody you talk to has a challenge about what they've experienced in the NHS or in a care delivery experience. And I'm a great believer that obviously IT, when used correctly and implemented correctly, can actually create some pretty decent benefits for people. And that's part of the motivations really for trying to focus on IT in that space.
And what sort of challenges are there in I'm going to probably pick on the healthcare sector, namely the NHS. What sort of challenges do you see there at the moment around IT and implementation?
Well, basically, capacity is one of the major issues. I mean, having worked in a trust delivering IT services, it is wholly capacity, and capacity for people to. We all know IT changes at a ridiculous pace. I mean, it's insane how quickly new stuff comes out. Moore's law is well and truly smashed right now. It's going bonkers. And when you are, as a frontline, IT person, literally keeping the lights on every day, firefighting, doing this and doing that, the network's gone down, the scan room doesn't work, we can't access the systems in A&E, blah, 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 whatever goes on. Those people struggle to keep up to date with new modern technology, quite rightly so, because they're literally keeping the lights on. So, the challenges of capacity is a major issue, and that leads to people then not being able to upskill quick enough in the IT world to actually be able to fully leverage the new technology that's available. And then there's also cost issues, and funding and everything else.
Without being obvious, well, it is pretty obvious, but obviously, NHS as a public sector initiative is all about making sure everyone's healthy. So
yep.
I would imagine those kind of IT improvements and requirements need to be really truly linked to health improvements for them to be 100%. Able to be used, right? Yeah.
100%. And then you hear about everybody talking about care in the community and shifting people out into their homes for care, and that's predominantly, there's two things going on there. One, it's cheaper. Two, people actually have better care outcomes in the community than they do when they get admitted to acute care environments. So if you can keep people in the community longer, albeit with some care wraparound, then they're likely to have better outcomes because they're in their own environment, and they're not then cross-infecting, contaminating with other people, and that sort of situation. So the use of technology in that situation can be transformational, but again, it's about getting technology to a point where it can actually enable people, not disable them, in the sense of it's hindering what they're doing. And with obviously modern tech and cloud computing and everything like that, it's a key enabler, but you do still find situations where trusts are, there's a favorite term I've used over the years, it's called sweating the asset. So basically they will have signed up for 5-10 year capital programs of data centers and things like that, so they have to financially sweat their assets. So it kind of then hinders also cloud computing adoption, which is another challenge. But there's so many facets to it. It's just a
I've always wondered about, because there's obviously lots of different NHS trusts, and then I know there's obviously NHS Digital as well. Yeah. And I haven't really been on NHS products, NHS clients enough to kind of understand that relationship. It seems as though like the trusts are kind of very segregated, and there's no common ground between them. No. But I think, is NHS Digital trying to bridge that gap?
Yeah, they are. And, it's part of the challenge is you have, rightly so, all these organizations are all effectively doing similar things, but they're all running similar services, but they do it very differently, because different pockets of, the country do things differently. That's the way it is. And, the trust themselves will will have their own systems and processes and ways of working. And then if you get a top-down, I mean, we've seen the National Programme for IT years ago was a complete flop. Why? Because it was top-down edicts to all of these organisations that, had to effectively change how they're working to adopt it. So there's a definite rub between the local and national in the sense of, and to be fair, it can be operational. It can also be technical, because a lot of the big clinical systems in use at a trust level are very data heavy and very data intensive. So if you look at the big imaging systems, for example, where they're taking MRI scans or ultrasound scans or whatever that may be, some of those data sets can be many, many gigabytes. So you imagine then trying to transfer, unless people are doing 30, 40, 50 scans a day in a department, how are you going to then transfer all of that up to the cloud, to keep some level of sanity going on your your internet links? So you've got this whole on-premise versus cloud at play. So when you try and then force national things down, cloud capabilities, it's going to conflict with the on-premise policies, group policies, all of those sorts of things. And there's always this rub going on, and it leads to people just say, well, we can't do it. Why can you do it? Because we haven't got the time and capacity to actually figure out what this is going to be and how this is going to look. And if you're going to impact our critical systems, then that's an obvious no. So there's always this rub, and they're working through it. So obviously a major challenge.
And would you say there's like a disconnect between the top level to the trust, to say the trust level, in terms of that adoption piece? So they're not really considering how these trusts are working or what they're up against.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a disconnect in the sense of it's something that people are actively ignoring, if you see what I mean. I think it is just so much of a technical challenge in terms of the way the tech is operating on premise to how cloud computing works. That there are, it's not, if you take one single business, right, and you try and then transform them to the cloud, yes, they'll have their on-premise systems, but they will be, there'll be record entry systems or whatever that may be. You're dealing with, operational data. You take that to a hospital, you're dealing with people data, clinical data. And one of the other interesting aspects is all of those systems will be potentially clinically validated for a specific use case on a specific set of technology and a specific operating system or patch release or whatever that may be. And then as soon as a trust, say, comes and says, right, we want to shift this to the cloud, and they talk to the suppliers quite rightly say, well, look, our clinical validation only states that this is valid for here. So if you try and shift that, that's going to break the validation, which means we've got to then go through a complete recertification process to try and do that. So again, you've then got all of these barriers popping up. And then, people look, well, it's too, do they say it's too hard? I don't know. But it is a very complex process in that sense. So you do end up with this two-world IT going on.
And I guess that also then, all those changes then bring in more cost as well. And then that starts to snowball. And that's 100%. Like, the one thing the NHS will struggle with is the
finding budget to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And this is the old thing. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. And, quite often, all of these services, they run locally. They run relatively well locally.
Yeah.
But you're not leveraging the full capability of cloud. So it's kind of like, well, the cost to change and the barriers to change are too great for us to actually look at this as a, strategic investment, because we also have to pay the staff and the massive electricity bills and the capital. And it's just like,
and there's, I would imagine there's a huge adoption piece, because people in the NHS have been there for, a lot of them will be there for a long time. They'll know these systems inside out and, use them subconsciously. So changing that, you've got a training piece, adoption piece, all kinds of stuff. Interesting.
And ultimately they're, and this is we as IT professionals navigate to IT as what we do every day. But if you think about it from a frontline nurse or a clinician, their job is to look after the patient, and that is the primary thing. So anything that is going to potentially impact on how they do that, they're going to receive negatively, because if you put in a new system and it increases my time to do a case by 10 minutes, whatever that may be, if I've got to do 40 of them a day, you're then limiting the amount of people I can see in the day, and it's like another barrier.
Not good. So
Yeah,
Gary,
so there you go. That was a bit of a long tangent, wasn't it?
that was good.
Interesting,
It was good.
really interesting.
Yeah. So Gary, are you using AI, Chat GPT, Copilot, all that sort of good stuff in your working day? And what areas do you think would most benefit from its usage?
Oh, that's a very leading question. Yes, I use it. What are my thoughts on it? That's another thing.
What do you use specifically? Have you got Copilot?
So I use Copilot, yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously dabble with ChatGPT in a personal aspect. It's yes, there are potential use cases. Everybody has a use case for AI. You talk to everybody, and my biggest gripe with AI is it is massively hyped, and it seems to be the answer to everything at the minute. And I am not convinced by any stretch that it is going to be as awesome. And bearing in mind, effectively, I'm shooting myself in the foot here because I'm supposed to be talking about, Copilot and everything else at work. But in reality, my concern is it is still a bit of a black box in a sense of, people are expecting it to do all of this amazing, wonderful stuff, but actually the use cases that come up and the amounts of data potentially that would need to train a model to do what they want to do, for example, just don't exist, if you see what I mean. And I think part of the challenge is everybody sees AI as this great behemoth that's going to solve every single world issue. And yes, potentially it has some great use cases, but it is all down to the models used and the data that the models are obviously trained on. And when you get into the enterprise world, my concern at the minute is people just say, "Oh, well, we'll use AI for that," blah 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 blah. But ultimately, it's all kind of same models in the background, and actually to train those models, you need vast quantities of data, vast amounts of computing energy to do it, and it's just not there in that sense of the word. So I think yes, it has some great use cases. Transcription, summaries, summarizing documents, all of that great stuff, things that can speed up the actions in your day. Everybody's aware of how, Teams summarizes, Copilot summarizes for Teams meetings. That stuff's great, 100% on board with that. When you start to get out into the more enterprise use cases, I do think it's it's not quite there yet. It'll come. I think it'll definitely come. But I think right now there is a lot of going to be quite a bit of trial and error, I think, in terms of how it's going to play properly.
Yeah.
As a Microsoft advocate, that's interesting context. But
it is, yeah. But no,
I think there's a differentiation though between Copilot and AI, though. I think,
that's what I mean.
Generative AI and Copilot, I think, is we try to differentiate between the two of them as often as possible.
But I don't think people get that, and I think they should. Everyone just uses the word AI, and it all gets lumped together, and then all of a sudden it's like this amazing solution that's going to solve every world problem. But it needs to be directed in the right way, and I don't know. We'll see. They'll get there.
Yeah.
But it's interesting what you say about overuse of AI and that it's going to solve everything. And actually, what a lot of people I don't think really realise is actually the environmental impact of doing that. Replacing the functions that you could quite easily write in some static code, or
100%.
Maybe you could do yourself. And actually just using an AI to do that, how much energy does that burn? What does that... Yeah, exactly. It's like, you're spinning up 8 very expensive and power-hungry GPUs to write a poem, right? It's a waste. Yeah. It's actually really wasteful.
Yeah, 100%. And this is the thing. And, for me, obviously AI has come out of, data science, effectively.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is probably where certainly the most value is probably at the minute, in the sense of, a specifically trained model hoarding over massive amounts of data to try and create some form of intelligence out of that to me is where the real AI value is. Speeding up your working day, yes, it's great. It's a cool feature to have, but it's not true AI in that sense, to my mind. But yeah.
So being a modern workplace solution architect, it does sound like you've got a lot of a broad and deep knowledge of various elements of the Microsoft stack. Is that right, or do you kind of specialize in one area particularly?
No, I on purposely try and keep pretty broad. It's
Yeah.
because, as I say, it's always been a bit of a passion for computing in general. Anyway, so why am I in model work at the minute? Because I think there's just so much capability in terms of improving business processes and using the likes of Power Platform and M365 to do that. There's a lot of capability there, and yes, with Copilot and extensibility and everything else, there's a lot more capability in that coming on design as well. But I like to also be aware of what's going on in other areas, like Azure and all that sort of side of things, and even other out non-Microsoft products. But that probably just comes out of it being a bit of a passion and interest anyway for me. So I just and as I say, like, because I've got like a healthcare IT background, I've always been looking at clinical systems, but they are their own systems in their own rights. If you know what I mean, they're not. They may sit in Azure, but they're products in their own right. So yeah. But yeah, I just like to try and keep them abreast as much as possible, really.
So interestingly, it's just pinged at me as well. But I've got your blog open, and I see when I go to the little blog drop down, you cover Power Platform, Copilot, Microsoft 365, Azure Health Tech, and you've also got random as well. How do you keep up to date with all these different technology stacks?
Lots of reading,
right?
Lots of watching, lots of googling, lots of just sometimes, to be fair, sometimes I do struggle actually just trying to keep up to date with so much because it changes so quickly. But invariably, you kind of gravitate to new stuff anyway because it's just something you enjoy. It's just a passion. It's you're just always fiddling with the latest tech. So it's at times it does feel like a bit of a chore. Not going to lie, because there's just so much stuff to try and consume and learn. But generally, I find the best way that I've learned keep on top of things is just by like playing with it and just fiddling with it, figuring it out.
Would you say that your role as a modern workplace solutions architect actually helps you to keep in line with all those different technology stacks then, or is it
to a point
purely personal?
To a point. I mean, it's obviously that role specifically is focused. It's if there's a product set, it's M365 and Power Platform. That's what that role is about. Copilot as well, because obviously it falls under that banner. But I don't like feeling limited in my knowledge, in the sense of if I hit a boundary, I like to mentally go and figure out what actually it is. And I've never been one for. Sounds really bad. My favorite question is why. Ask my parents. I was a why kid all the time, and even my son now is a why kid, and it's awesome. But it's also like you literally just can't stop going, well, why is that doing that? Why is that doing that? And you just follow rabbit holes, sometimes to your detriment. But actually, it's probably the most beneficial thing I find, and especially in technology, because I've seen people in positions in the past where they go, "This is my world. This is my. I never go between." And yes, they are experts, absolutely 100% experts in a specific thing. But for me, I want to know more. I want to go wider. I want to go broader and understand. And started off like I say, fiddling with Active Directories and all that sort of stuff. And, that to me then translates to Azure and Cloud World. So then you go into Azure and say, oh, what's this service? What's this service? What does that do? Why does that do that? And you just follow this, and it just, I mean,
it's curiosity, really, isn't it? Kind of.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think it's important what you say there as well about jumping from one to the other, because if I look at that list, all of those technologies, they all interlink into each other, right? So Power Platform links into Azure and M365, and as does Copilot. And then I'm sure health tech, like I've seen a lot of health tech is actually all based on Azure, based off Azure anyway. So it's all. If you want to, you're working on something with Power Platform, you need to integrate into M365. Like that helps you to rather than being like, I'm just Power Platform, I'm not going to touch anything else. Like be able to go into Azure as well and actually understand Azure. That's so beneficial
100%,
especially as a solution architect as well, right?
Absolutely. And you can't. I just don't believe it. You can't mentally hinder yourself. You just got to go where your go with the flow and just see what
Yeah.
figures out. And and as I say, like, and just even at the point of just trying to figure out a problem, talk to my wife. The first thing I do with anything is try and problem solve, pretty much to my detriment when it comes to my kids. But she's like, "Oh, you got to think about the emotions and all that sort of stuff." But no, I'm like, right, well, what's the problem? We got to fix it. And then you take and apply that to IT, and literally it's a case of, right, well, we'll just go and find out what the actual source of the issue is. And it might be an Azure, it might be an identity problem, it might be a firewall problem, it might be a networking problem. Let's just go and find it and then fix it. And that
That's
works
quite
for me in
funny.
IT.
Like, I've never really identified that before, that the reason why I'm a fixer has probably got a lot to do with my career choice.
It is, but it is.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
if you look at
interesting.
IT careers, what do? We problem solve, and we problem solve on a great scale in terms of enterprise solutions and blah 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 blah. But it's all problem solving.
Yeah, yeah.
People come to us, I can't do this. Okay, fine. Well, let's find someone that does.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've listened to any of the podcasts, but we've got this section called Uncomfortable Corner.
Yep.
Uncomfortable Corner.
Sorry, I feel like
if I wasn't intimidated, I am now.
No, you're not intimidated with good podcast hosts. We gave you a fair pre-warning of 5 seconds of this section.
You did.
So when was the last time you felt uncomfortable, whether that was in or out of work, and maybe kind of go into a bit of detail as to how you felt, how you dealt with it, what you learned, and how you kind of prepare for it if it happens again?
Yeah, to be fair, I've been mulling this one over for a while, just to think of what I would say. But to be fair, regularly is probably more of a decent answer. I think sometimes my thirst for needing to know does times cause me some challenges in the fact that, which is ironic considering I work in IT change, but actually doing new things sometimes I struggle with, because actually I like to know the detail before I fully go into things. And certainly in my personal life and everything else, I'm not necessarily the most adventurous of people, but I like to. How do I deal with it? I think I probably know that I'm that way and try and act accordingly, in a sense of, like, expect that if something is new, it's going to give me some pretty strong emotions, and actually I need to mentally work that through and process it before I actually get to what I'm going to do, if you see what I mean. That being said, never works out like that, but invariably it's, I think, and honestly, to be fair, the biggest thing is probably learning is actually since having kids, that, and obviously I appreciate not everybody has kids and all that sort of stuff, but it's like they inject so much chaos into your life that you kind of have to learn on how to deal with it. And it's kind of like, that whilst it's good to know and it's good to try and figure things through, you don't always get the opportunities. You kind of have to just trust your gut and go with it, and actually be, have the faith in yourself that you'll figure it out and that you'll find a way through it. And, sometimes I do struggle a bit with anxiety and stuff about, doing new things. And obviously, speaking at events and stuff is always a bit of a famous one that I kind of struggle with, but you kind of have to just not leap off the edge, but that you do have to just kind of believe that actually, it will work out all right. And as much as your brain is probably firing on 100 cylinders, telling you not to do it, not to go with it, and all your emotions will be everywhere, that actually you just have to have some belief and that you will be able to manage and cope with it. And and actually it kind of did take, like, having kids to try and, because you kind of see it in them. And even my son, he like I said to you earlier, he's like a why kid. He just wants to know every single detail. And as soon as something isn't quite how he expects, he does blow up emotionally. And you do have to then obviously learn to manage that. But through seeing him, it's kind of taught me a bit about myself, and the fact that actually I can be a bit like that at times as well. And my wife, bless her, she does kind of have to remind me of things like that at the time.
I mean, me and my daughter Esme have this very similar kind of relationship, and she gets very, if she can't do something quite quickly,
Yeah,
she
get really
gets
frustrated.
She
Yeah.
will overcompensate and she will go into it big time. One of the biggest words I ever heard her say. She managed to climb up to the top of this thing in the playground, like huge ropey thing. And she was probably like 2.5, 3, and she got to the top and she shouted, "Perseverance!" That's hilarious.
At which point you went, "I'm winning as a parent."
Yeah, that's my kid. Hilarious. It's so funny.
So my son's not a Y kid. He's at the moment he's a no kid.
Right. Yeah.
So it's no to everything. But when do they turn into Y kids?
I don't know that they do. To be fair, so just for context, I've got an 8-year-old and a 2-year-old. My 8-year-old is the Y kid.
Okay, yeah, I've got mine's a 2-year-old, so he's at the no stage.
Yeah, absolutely, mine is as well. And like the other day, literally, in fact, we're trying to potty train him at the minute, right? And it's hilarious. He's really good. He will generally do it. But literally, like this morning, we were trying to take him out to nursery, and I went into it. I was like, "Right, come on, are we going to put our pants on or trousers?" He just looked at me and went, "No." I was like, "It's nursery time. We need to go." No. And I was like,
I can't even get mine to sit on the potty at the moment. But he insists on weeing in the bath.
Oh yeah. Well, to be fair, it's like
I love it when you're in the swimming pool and they come up to you and they think that they're whispering, and they go, "I need to go to the toilet." Okay, you can do that, but just kind of be quiet. Okay, and then they stand. I know you can't see my face, but well, you two can. But they're like kind of in the pool, and they go.
that expression of relief.
God, yeah, and the expression of utter mortification while the lifeguard's doing laps on pee duty.
But also a sense of immense pride that actually they feel comfortable enough just to go where they want to go. In which case,
you rogue. Still needs permission, but go for it, rogue.
Controlled chaos. Yeah, you see, that's the answer.
Yeah. I found like on the anxiety side of things that you touched on then.
Yeah.
I always found like if I was anxious, it's hard to explain, but if I was anxious about something, normally it was actually to do with some kind of permission related thing.
Yeah.
Like I felt like someone had to tell me that I could feel that way or could do that. And then when they do, and it's like it unlocks it, and then I'm all right.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
It's a strange one, that. Yeah.
And to be fair, I think it's a generational thing as well. Like, I think sometimes we've been grown up saying that you can't feel emotions and all this sort of stuff, but actually, obviously, you can.
I mean,
you're allowed to cry.
We talk about it.
Absolutely,
they can.
We talk
Watch
about
this.
Just when he looked at my face.
It was a shame, to be fair.
I don't know how I'm married, to be honest. Gary. I think that's kind of all we've got time for today. It's been a really, really interesting chat. It was really good to get some insights on like NHS and your parenting techniques. I'm going to employ some. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well,
so you can find. Okay, no worries. You can find Gary on LinkedIn and on his website, raife.com. Links to those resources mentioned in this episode will be in the show notes. Music today was provided by Ken Like Fit. You can find his music on Spotify. Again, the link to that will be in the show notes. Any additional music will also be there too. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss the next episode. And we would also really appreciate it if you give us a follow on LinkedIn. And drum roll, we're at 702 followers.
That's a cracking number.
Yes.
Not that bad, Mike.
I told you I could do it. I told you I could do it.
You should get a part on Neighbours.
Yeah, I should.
Don't play the song.
I can play it for 14 seconds.
No. So if you're really enjoying the podcast, we'd really appreciate it if you could give us a follow, a like, and a review on there as well. Thank you very much. We have been Sprint Zero, and and we've been Mike Gowland.
Mike Gowland.
Say goodbye, Mike.
Goodbye, Mike.
And Gary Rafe. Say goodbye, Gary.
Goodbye, Gary.
And I'm John, and we'll see you on the next episode of Sprint Zero. Bye.
Bye.
Love you, Mike.
Love you too, John. Love you, Gary.
Love you, Gary.
Love you, Gary.
Yay! Go love.
Pay it back. Leave that to the end. Now he's intimidated.
Yeah.
I'm Sean. I run the Architects Accelerator. It's an 8-week training program to help you become a solutions architect. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you how awesome it is. We're just going to hear from previous participants.
My name's Mike Holling.
My name is Sander.
Hi, I'm Danielle.
Hi, I'm Luke. Hi, I'm Callum. I work as a senior functional consultant.
I signed up for this because it sounded something that I hadn't seen anywhere else.
And that's what I liked about this course, is that we were focusing about taking the right requirement and proposing to the customer the right solution.
It's showing how to use the whole platform and how to build better solutions that could last a long time.
I don't have a background in software. And given that it's changing so fast every single day, I needed a guided way of learning. If the solution architect is the direction I want to go, I have taken something from every day of those classes and have applied them to my work.
Found it really useful and really enjoyed it.
Use promo code SPRINT0 to get $50 off.